Now coverage of the qualifying laps for tomorrow's Austrian Grand Prix.
Die Formel 1 und Ö3 im Spielberg. Exklusiv auf 106.1. Ö3, Ihr Grand Prix Radio.
The A1 ring in the Syrian mountains of Austria, just about the most picturesque track in the Formula 1 calendar. Welcome to our coverage of the qualifying hour. Good afternoon to you. The qualifying session took place a couple of hours ago and you'll be able to see it very shortly, and of course it goes without saying. We hope to resume our normal live coverage in the very near future. You know, it's going to be a strange Grand Prix weekend without Michael Schumacher, the double world champion, missing after breaking his leg at Silverstone. But Damon Hill is there, and Hill quickest in one of the practice sessions yesterday, and so is David Coulthard. And Coulthard now talking in terms of a late charge for the title on the back of his great triumph at the British Grand Prix.
Michael's struggling to get out of the car a little bit. I wonder if he's hurt his leg. He's waving, look. That's Schumi with his arm up in the air saying, well, thank you, I'm not too bad.
Explosive start from Hakkinen. Maybe Irvine has got ahead of Coulthard. Irvine in the Ferrari ahead of Coulthard.
Can Coulthard do anything down the outside? It's going to be tough from there. Straightforward team race there. Schumi locking up his right front wheel. No harm done there. Would have scared his mechanics a little bit. It's a pure team race. Who can get their car away first?
Here is race leader. They've got a problem on the right front.
He's wiggling the car around, just feeling. Somebody's telling him, just feel. Is that okay? Irvine made a pig's error coming into the pit garage. Skidded past, and I think everybody had to shuffle along a little bit.
Eddie Irvine coming out of his pit stop. He's got to stay to the left of the yellow line, and there goes Coulthard.
Is that a McLaren? That's Hakkinen, lost his left rear. Red car's going round him. Hakkinen's left rear off.
This is doing no good for Mika Hakkinen at all. Jack Villeneuve is not going to finish a Grand Prix again for the BAR team, which won't improve his humour. In comes Hakkinen again into the pits and retires into the garage. The crowd goes mad. Damon Hill leads the British Grand Prix. Yes, 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 I know he's not going to for very much longer. David Coulthard from Twynham, Scotland, wins the British Grand Prix for McLaren.
8 races still to go. Hakkinen 8 points ahead of Irvine. Now Ferrari's #1, and then Frentzen, Coulthard and Ralf Schumacher. Just a couple of points between Ferrari and McLaren in the Constructors' Championship. Damon Hill's aim is to help Jordan hang on to that best ever third place. Now then, Tony Jardine, Damon Hill, top of the pile. What's occurring over there?
Well, it's a complete turnaround, isn't it? He's happy with the car. He had said before Monte Carlo he was really, really unhappy driving the cars in their current configuration. Now he's got to grips with it. He went off about 5 times yesterday over the grass, through the gravel beds, and he still ended up first quickest time. So he's doing his rally driver impression. But he left team boss Eddie Jordan with his jaw hanging on top of the Armco barrier. He was really pleased.
Mika Häkkinen remains favourite to retain his title. But what about David Coulthard? How realistic is that late charge he's talking about?
Well, it is realistic because it's a low-scoring championship, and McLaren have got reliability problems. Häkkinen didn't score, his wheel fell off at Silverstone. Irvine's got it all to do, so the three of them have got to watch each other, but Häkkinen's the man. He's got to watch his tail because Coulthard's coming up, and Irvine's going to be really going for it with weighted Ferrari behind him.
OK, Coulthard quickest in one of the sessions this morning. Well, let's find out the latest news on Michael Schumacher. The Finn Mika Salo, who had an excellent drive for Arrows in the Austrian qualifying last year, is the man replacing him in the Ferrari. Here's James Allen.
How do you replace the irreplaceable? That has been the problem facing Ferrari since Michael Schumacher's accident at Silverstone 2 weeks ago. The cause of the accident has now been traced to a failure in the left rear brake, which meant that at 190 miles an hour, only his front brakes slowed the car down before it left the track. The gravel trap wiped off very little speed, and the 67 mile an hour impact with the tyre barriers was enough to break Michael's right leg in 2 places. He had a 12-inch steel plate inserted in his leg, but he's now back on his feet and is doing daily rehabilitation exercises. Those close to him say he's in good spirits and is talking of being back in Ferrari overalls in the Nürburgring in 5 races' time. So opportunity knocks for Mika Salo, who was preparing for his wedding in Helsinki when he got the call-up of a lifetime.
Actually, I was in my dancing lesson for the wedding waltz, and I had a phone call, and it was my manager Mike, and he said that there's a flight in 1.5 hours to Bologna, get on it. I just took 1 pair of jeans and 1 t-shirt and left, and just made it to the flight and came here. And since then it's been just amazing. It's a huge chance for me, and to show what I can do. I never had this quick car in my life. It's unfortunate what happened to Michael. I'm really honored to be replacing him, and I try to do a good job, and when he's ready to come back, I hope he will be proud what I've done, so hopefully I can take many as possible points off McLaren's.
The big winner in all this is Eddie Irvine, who now finds himself leading the Ferrari team and carrying their championship hopes. He's only 8 points behind Häkkinen, and he's relishing his newfound position.
I feel so free now to get on with and do the job. I just hope that extra feeling of elation transfers onto the track, and my driving's better, and my qualifying's better, and I race better, and I can beat Mika. That's Mika and DC. It's going to be tough. There's no doubt about it. It's going to be really tough. He's flying. He's driving superb. He's not making any mistakes, and he's going to be a tough one to beat. But times change.
He'll need to find 0.3 of a second in qualifying and 30 seconds in a race if he's to get himself on a level where he can beat Häkkinen. We all wish him luck.
Opportunity knocks for Eddie Irvine, but Tony, I'm not sure we're going to see Michael Schumacher again this year.
Well, it's a good point. You may not. He will want that leg to heal properly because of his football, his skiing, the whole thing. And anybody who's been injured badly like that, physiotherapy or not, you have a long time to think about things. And there are some rumours that he might say, well, don't want to come back at all. But definitely these rumours of hand throttles and hand control so he can come back early is too risky for him, because he's going to have his leg battered around in the cockpit. He won't be doing that.
OK, thank you very much indeed, Tony. It really is a whole new ball game over there without Michael Schumacher. At Spielberg, they've had the customary deluge, the pit's underwater a couple of days ago. It looks, though, fine, doesn't it, for qualifying? And straight after the break, we're going to be joining Martin Brundle and Murray Walker.
Welcome to Spielberg in Austria, in the glorious Styrian Mountains, surrounded with magnificent scenery. You expect Julie Andrews and the whole Von Trapp family to come tripping out of the forest any moment here. It's not going to happen now, though, because The qualifying session for tomorrow's Austrian Grand Prix begins. Out of the pits goes Pedro Diniz. You can see there that there's some white clouds up in the sky. There's a few grey ones as well. It absolutely hammered down the day before yesterday. Yesterday was clear, this morning was clear, and just to bring you up to speed, the fastest driver we've had here this year so far is not Mika Häkkinen that you're looking at. It is David Coulthard, and David Coulthard was 5/100ths of a second faster than Mika Häkkinen this morning, with Eddie Irvine just 1/10 of a second slower in the Ferrari. Johnny Herbert, a magnificent 4th fastest, only 3/10 of a second off the pace. And what a funny thing Formula One is. Yesterday, Damon Hill was fastest. This morning, he was 18th.
Yes, Damon's been off the road more like a treasure hunt than a practice session this morning for Damon Hill. I think we've really got two scraps going on this afternoon. It's a three-way fight for pole position between Coulthard, Häkkinen and Eddie Irvine, the only 3 drivers to get into the 1:11 this morning. And then I noticed that from 5th through to 20th place was covered by under a second, Murray. So I think there's going to be, you know, if you hook up a great lap, you could be 5th on the grid. If you don't quite ace it, you might be as low down as 20th. I think we could see some surprising runners back down the field.
Yeah, we could indeed. Well, Pedro Diniz is getting out early. I don't know if he's worried about rain. I don't think we're going to have any. Mika Salo, incidentally, in the Ferrari, is just exiting the pit lane. Pedro Diniz, who was 14th fastest this morning in the Sauber. His teammate Jean Alesi was 12th fastest. And just to underline what Martin was saying, last year, when admittedly the qualifying session was very wet, we had Giancarlo Fisichella in pole position in the Benetton, and Jean Alesi, Pedro Diniz's teammate, was 2nd on the grid. It all changed very rapidly in the race, but I'm not really expecting a very different pole position from the ones we've been having so far this year.
I think the drivers will tend to split the qualifying session up into probably 3 runs, maybe 4, but over the period of the whole hour. There's been a lot of cars flying off the road here, and as soon as they're out of the clean part where the rubber is down on the racetrack, they're just skidding straight off the track, way through the gravel trap and back on, and it's tending to drag a lot of dirt and grass back onto the racetrack. So there is a chance that this circuit could have a sweet spot, maybe just 20-25 minutes into the session.
Pedro Diniz climbing up towards turn 2 as we look at Tora Takagi, who went off in the arrows this morning and ripped the front wing off it. It looks as though he's doing the same thing at this moment.
Yes, that's exactly what I was just talking about. Now he's back on the track, and that leaves a trail of dust, and the slick tyres tend to just soak that up like a sponge, Murray.
Johnny Herbert, 4th fastest this morning. They've got the new Series 3 Ford V10 engine in Johnny's car. It's the Series 2 in Barrichello's car, and it's an extremely good engine. More powerful, better torque than the previous one. Damon Hill sitting in the Jordan, hoping obviously to improve on his 18th fastest time this morning. As you look for the first time at Mika Salo, the Finnish driver in the Ferrari, grasping his opportunity with both hands, having previously driven for Arrows and for Tyrrell and for 2 races for Lotus in 1994.
And of course BAR a couple of times earlier on this year when Zonta was out with a leg problem from his crash in Brazil. So Salo has moved around the teams, but this is by far and away his best opportunity. 9th in the warm-up this morning.
Pedro Diniz is fastest at the moment, 1:13.8 compared with 1:13.2 for him this morning. But as usual, we have 12 laps for each driver in the 60 minutes. And Mika Salo is currently fastest. And the interesting thing is to compare his time with this morning, because yesterday, as you're watching Eddie Irvine, Salo lost 40 minutes of practice time when he went off.
Yeah, curiously, and that's the Arrows stopping in the pit straight. As you can see, that's the pit wall to his right, so he can leap over that. There is a hole in the wall. They can pull that car back, providing it's out of gear, and take that away without interrupting this practice session. But interestingly, Irvine was 0.2 of a second slower than Salo on that first lap. So despite Irvine having done a flying lap, and he's slower already again on the second lap. So Salo, for some reason, having a bit of an edge on Irvine, which we haven't seen anything close to that so far.
So here is Mika Salo, still a bit slower this afternoon than he was this morning. Mika Salo did a 1:12.8 this morning. He's done a 1:13.3 so far, but he's going quicker now than he did in that lap, as you can see. Really getting a hold of the Ferrari and wringing its neck.
Yes, he had to just get out of the throttle a little bit. He went in a bit deep into the last corner, kept it under control, and moves a bit ahead on his provisional pole of a 13.0. Meanwhile, Irvine, I think, has gone into the pits. Yes, he has.
Now, just as a matter of interest, last year's pole position time was a slow one, of course. Fisichella in the wet, 1 minute 29.6. The target, in a way, is Jacques Villeneuve's pole position time from 1997 in the Williams with slick tyres. 1 minute 10.3. Fastest this morning, 1 minute 11.8. News from James Allen.
Well, Murray, Eddie Irvine's being wheeled in past me. Ross Brawn, of course, has the undivided attention now of him. It's good for Eddie, but Mika Salo is a very interesting situation. He's using Michael Schumacher's race engineer Ignazio Lunetta and all of his race mechanics. He said just before qualifying he was looking for a top 4 qualifying position, but Mika also has a secret weapon this weekend. Michael Schumacher apparently has told him to phone him whenever he needs any help or advice. The only proviso was he doesn't want him to ring him when he's asleep, but apparently Mika's been taking full advantage of that. And I'm sure he's going to continue to take full advantage of it throughout the weekend. Obviously, Michael, even though he's not here in body, he's certainly here in spirit.
Well, he could have phoned him from turn 4 yesterday afternoon when he went off to see what he had done wrong. But Mika Salo has got a tremendous challenge, of course, and an enormous weight on his shoulders. We're 7 minutes into the session. He is fastest. Eddie Irvine is second fastest, ahead of Pedro Diniz, Luca Badoa, and the Minardis, incidentally, are going much, much better. They have an upgraded Ford V10 engine, and they have a completely new aerodynamic setup.
Yes, I suppose the first question Mika has to ask him is, are you asleep on that basis? But there's nice slow-mo replay there of Salo in the Ferrari through turn 1, that is, and quite a nasty curb on the outside there, as you can see, falls away, and if you get a little bit sideways on the wrong side of that, then you can very easily lose the back end of the car very, very quickly and slam the barrier on the inside, on the right-hand side of the track. Irvine gently blocking a front brake into turn 2. Not a major problem.
Now, this is an emasculated version of the original Great Österreich ring. It was revamped dramatically in 1997, and there was a lot of criticism of it, which happily has turned out to be unjustified. It's a very neat little circuit. The lap length is 2.6 miles, and there are some passing places on it, and that's good news.
Both McLarens leaving the pits line astern, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but each car runs individually in terms of when they go out on the track, Murray, but even so, if one car spins off and causes a red flag, it automatically spoils your other car's lap, and Ken Tyrrell always used to split us up when we went out to make sure that he didn't have 2 cars exposed at any one time.
I wonder if he's watching us. If he is, all the best, Ken. We wish you were here, as ever, as Mika Häkkinen turns off the track. Something's happened to Mika Häkkinen's McLaren. That's not planned, obviously, so he's going to have to get out of the car and run back and get to the spare, which, fortunately for him, is set up for Mika Häkkinen. But that's a setback right from the beginning. 9 minutes into the session, Mika Häkkinen on his out lap, watched by Norbert Haug, the Mercedes boss, stands around looking a bit spare, waiting for that. I knew that would appear in the picture soon. There are travelling marshals on motorcycles, and they can take the driver straight back to the circuit. That's not going to do a lot of good for Mika's well-being. No, McLaren don't like their cars out on the racetrack. They tend to... Do you remember when they got photographed that time? When it was there, they're very exposed when they are. They're photographers sticking cameras inside them and underneath the engine covers, looking at the suspension, etc. And of course, they're very valuable pictures for the other teams to buy. But Mika's going to have to abandon that car. He needs to get back to the pits to qualify, of course. Yes, Darren Heath stuck his camera into the cockpit of the McLaren and revealed that there was an extra brake pedal. Now, Rubens Barrichello that you're looking at in the Stewart is on a quick lap, faster than anybody's been so far in the first sector. Barrichello was slower than Johnny Herbert this morning. Barrichello 7th fastest, Johnny Herbert 4th fastest. I remind you that Barrichello is using the slightly inferior Ford V10 engine as he comes through to complete the lap, and this should take him to the top of the pile. But it doesn't. Mika Salo is still 1/10 of a second faster.
Yes, Barrichello looking a bit out of sorts. A lot of speculation in the paddock that Johnny Herbert is under pressure at Stewart, or despite having a 2-year contract. But Herbert's been absolutely flying and had the measure of Barrichello by probably 3/4 of a second per lap all through free practice. So Barrichello not having his finest weekend, and indeed Johnny has already pipped Barrichello. Johnny up into 2nd place, Johnny Herbert 2nd, Salo, Herbert, Trulli, Barrichello, Irvine, Dinitz, top 6.
11 minutes into the session as we watch the Prost coming down to the Gerser curve, which is turn 3, just inside the famous Bosch curve on the old circuit, which was one of the most spectacular corners in Formula 1. He goes out of that into the Lauda curve, the left-hander that he's approaching now at about 95, 100 miles an hour, accelerates up to 140 on this short straight, backs back to 90 for the Gerhard Berger curve, named after the great Austrian driver. A slight kink right, and he starts to climb now to the Jochen Rindt curve, named after the great late 1972 world champion Austrian Jochen Rindt. Into the pit lane dives the Prost and backs off. When you see the white line on the track, that's where he has to slow down to the mandatory 70 miles an hour pit lane speed limit. James Allen, what's the news?
Well, I'm standing in front of the spare car down at McLaren. Mika Häkkinen has just arrived back. It's incredibly matter-of-fact the way they went about this. Within about, I would say, about a minute of Häkkinen's car breaking down, the engine was fired into life on the spare car. The efficiency at McLaren is absolutely frightening. It's quite interesting. McLaren have gone back to the future for this race. They've used the 1998 steering position. Both drivers apparently had complained that the car was very difficult to get into the corners, and so they've gone back to the steering position that they had in 1998. They've also gone back to a 1998 front wing. I think this 99 car is perhaps a little bit ahead of its time, as Häkkinen now is being strapped in, very calm, the look in his eyes, completely unfazed by the whole experience, Murray. Quite incredible.
Yes, that T-car should feel exactly like his car, I'm sure it will. I can only surmise that he's had some kind of electrical failure on his car. It's unusual for a car to stop so early out of the pits. We didn't see any sign of smoke or other problems, and I would imagine it's one of the mysterious black boxes, Murray, that's let him down.
Fisichella, 2nd on the grid last year, 5th fastest this morning, waiting to go out in the Benetton. They've done an enormous amount of work on that, incidentally, to improve the handling, and it looks as though it looks as though it's paying off, as Ralf Schumacher in the red and white Williams exits the pit lane. And here is Marc Genet in the much improved Minardi. He's 13th fastest at the moment. We've still got to get times from Mika Häkkinen, David Coulthard, Frentzen, Ralf Schumacher that you've just been looking at, Damon Hill that you're looking at now is on his outlap, Jean Alesi, Zanardi, and Fisichella and Jacques Villeneuve. So Damon Hill has now completed his fast lap. He's gone 6th fastest, 6/10 of a second off Salo's time, and 14 minutes into the session, it's still Ferrari new boy, Mika Salo fastest.
Fisichella off into the gravel trap. He's had lots and lots of problems. He has been very fast, but Fisichella, that must be the 6th or 7th time we've seen that Benetton bouncing across the gravel.
They're all doing it at turn 2, incidentally. Damon Hill went off there, Frentzen went off. That's the uphill right-hander.
Here's Wylock, Murray's gone in, had to go underneath the Williams, just blocked a wheel. And there's Frentzen off the road yet again. He said they're just getting understeer going in the corner and then more understeer building. Now Coulthard started a lap. There's Häkkinen going out in the spare car. Coulthard started a lap and we haven't seen any times from him yet. I don't know where he is and whether he's stopped out on the track, whether his computer's just not functioning. But at the moment Coulthard's gone missing, and he's actually he's actually straight back into the pits for some reason, has Coulthard, so he's not doing a timed lap.
And it's not a very good afternoon for McLaren, to put it mildly. Mika Häkkinen stops on his out lap and has to run back for the spare. There's only one spare, which is set up for Mika Häkkinen. So if David Coulthard's got a problem, they're going to have to share that car. Here's Heinz-Harald Frentzen, a replay going off, as I said, at the climbing uphill right-hander at the Remus curve. That's turn 2. That's the one, incidentally, where Michael Schumacher collided with David Coulthard in the past and pushed Coulthard off the circuit. And that's Heinz-Harald Frentzen going off at turn 8. That's the right-hander, which leads into the start and finish straight, and where Michael Schumacher went off last year.
Yes, I think the problem, this is back up at turn 2, Fisichella locking up, going underneath the Williams. The problem in that last corner, I think, is it's a big braking area, downhill, slightly off camber, and they're going in, and if they get it slightly wrong, they get a bit of oversteer, turn into it, and then they're just way off the road, not just running a little bit wide, just way off the road. And again here, you see Fisichella, the same incident from another angle. As soon as you're off of that black line on the racetrack, it's almost like a white powder on the outside, and there's zero grip.
Very, very slippery circuit anyway. It was washed completely clean on Thursday with the appalling rain that we had. And of course this year, the cars have got 4 grooves on both the front and rear tyres, so there's even less grip this year than there was in the past.
Well, that's for sure. At the moment, we've got Salo on pole by 1/1000th of a second from Fisichella, then Herbert, Trulli, Barrichello and Irvine. So Salo's second flying lap certainly put him in quite good shape, but I'm really expecting pole to be significantly under this time, certainly late 11s, Murray.
And Mika Häkkinen is on his out lap in the second car as I talk to you. Still no sign of David Coulthard, incidentally. Jacques Villeneuve is on his out lap, and he's the last of the 22 would-be starters for tomorrow's race, as Heinz-Harald Frentzen is on a quick lap, which could give him provisional pole position some 14 minutes into the session. When he's gone there, Heinz-Harald Frentzen has gone fastest, 1 minute 12.002.
And Häkkinen beats that.
Häkkinen goes faster again, 0.6 of a second faster, so he's not been inhibited by the spare car.
Not at all, a 12.002 as you can see now from Mika Häkkinen, so that's within a couple of tenths of what they did this morning. That's amazing, isn't it? Jump into that car, first lap of the weekend in that car for Häkkinen. They're not allowed to use the spare car up until this point of the weekend, and Mika just steps on it.
Only 1.7 seconds slower than that lap of Jacques Villeneuve's in the Williams 2 years ago, which was the fastest pole position time we'd had at the Österreich Prix.
Over a third of a second up in the long first section of this lap, 33 seconds. So Mika already significantly up, even than on his provisional pole. Had a bit of a tail end slide there as he got on the power, heading down towards the Rindt curve. One of the most difficult corners here, I think, is the cars who sweep through there, no room for error on the exit, and try and slow it all down, bump across the curb. It's sort of rather inelegant, actually, but you must take the curb on the inside. 11.4, terrific lap.
1.1 seconds slower than Villeneuve, and here are the top 10 with 41 minutes to go. Häkkinen is in provisional pole position, Frentzen is up there with him. Jacques Villeneuve in the BAR is a superb third. Mika Salo in the Ferrari has been pushed down to 4th. Fisichella is 5th, Zanardi is 6th. Johnny Herbert has been pushed down to 7th, Trulli is 8th, Deniz is in 9th position, Barrichello is 10th.
Yes, you saw Häkkinen's car being recovered into the back of the pits. Meanwhile, this is Coulthard starting his first flying lap. We understand he went in and adjusted tyre pressures. Quite how he knew they weren't right on his out lap, I don't know. Or maybe they intended to do that, to get the thing up to fully up to temperature, adjust the pressures and go for it. But David into turn 2. We don't get a first section time until the end of this next straight as they head into the Remus curve.
But as I talk to you, Rubens Barrichello and Jean Alesi are both on, and Eddie Irvine. Barrichello in particular, Irvine are both on quick laps. David Coulthard has just gone fastest of all in the first sector. You're looking at Eddie Irvine now, and this is going to put him right up into the top 4, certainly. But David Coulthard is going to be the man to watch. Irvine nearly loses it. He's lost a bit of time there, but nevertheless, that puts him up to second fastest, 0.8 of a second slower than Hakkinen.
Yeah, Eddie really stamping on the throttle pedal way to. I haven't seen him do that. I haven't seen anybody do that so far in the weekend. Eddie obviously hooked the thing up nicely on the way in. Just felt the grip, felt the confidence, and just stepped on it a little bit too hard. And Coulthard goes fastest, 11.299. Coulthard on his first flying lap takes provisional pole.
Well, it's all happening here at the A1 ring. The two McLarens as we watch a replay of Eddie Irvine coming through to complete their lap, and watch the Ferrari get out of shape. Watch Irvine recover it. Magnificent reflexes he has. Crosses the line. He's now third fastest with the two McLarens ahead of him. David Coulthard fastest, Hakkinen second.
Yes, when a car starts to slide like that, you feel it through the steering. The steering wheel unloads. There's less torque coming through it. You feel it through the palms of your feet sometimes, especially if you're having a problem under braking. And then finally you feel it in your backside. You're part of that car. If that car slides, you're sliding. You're mounted to it very rigidly with 6 seat belts. And Irvine, really, you've got to be ahead of a slide like that. You've got to notice it even before it develops, otherwise you'll be facing the wrong way.
Now, Damon Hill has got a great deal of work to do. He's only 14th fastest this morning after a very bad morning when he was 18th. He's done 6 of his 12 laps. Although there are 39 minutes left to go, he's just got 6 laps left. And he's got to improve a great deal. He's 2.35 seconds off the pace at the present moment. So he'll be in the garage with them making adjustments to the car as Ron Dennis, the McLaren boss, looks over his shoulder down towards turn 8, the last corner on the circuit.
Yes, that'd be very easy for Ron at this stage. I think he's got the front row of the grid all signed, sealed and delivered, Murray, I would imagine, but what a clear gap. I mean, Coulthard nearly a second faster than Irvine at the moment, and you saw how hard Irvine was trying.
Now, Hakkinen is the man as far as pole positions are concerned this year. This is Ricardo Zonta in the BAR, who went extremely well yesterday morning. The Brazilian getting a bit out of shape as he comes through, crosses the line and is 14th. But his teammate Jacques Villeneuve is in the top 6. He's 6th quickest.
Yes, Zonta hasn't yet scored a point in Formula 1, but he is very, very highly rated, this young man, amongst some of the senior bosses of Formula 1. They're really expecting great things from him. I don't know whether it's the situation he's in, the car he's in. He lost a lot of time out of the car with that damaged leg, as we see one of the Minardis off. But Zonta has a lot of expectation. I haven't seen anything yet, Murray, to suggest he's going to do that.
No, and as you watched Luca Badoer, we're going for a break. 35 minutes left of the qualifying session for tomorrow's Austrian Grand Prix, and Johnny Herbert, the man you are watching, has moved up to 5th position, just 1/10 of a second slower than his teammate Barrichello. Rubens Barrichello is in 4th position. The two stewards obviously going extremely well. Eddie Irvine is still 3rd, and the two McLarens of Coulthard and Hakkinen are still on the front row of the grid. David Coulthard the faster. You're watching Mika Salo in the Ferrari try to improve on 9th position, and I think he's going to do so.
Yes, I agree with you, Murray. I think this is going to help him a lot. It's not going to threaten the front row of the grid, but moves him up to 7th. He might be just a bit disappointed with that when he sees that on his computer readout on the dashboard, but he's still on track, and it does seem here as if a slightly longer run and not necessarily new tyres is giving the best lap time.
Yes, interestingly enough, new tyres, which normally produce quicker times, have not been doing so here at the A1 ring in Austria. They've actually been going quicker, or were going quicker yesterday and this morning on used tyres. It's a very, very smooth, non-abrasive surface. We have 33.5 minutes left, and Ralf Schumacher is now putting up a qualifying time, no doubt about that, because he moves from last to 8th position. 1.369 seconds off David Coulthard's fastest lap of the afternoon so far. And Ralf Schumacher, for my money, is the driver of the year. He certainly was at Silverstone for the British Grand Prix, where he finished in that magnificent 3rd position. And how is Salo going? He's going quicker than he did on the previous lap. I forecast that he'll be in the top 6 for qualifying, and he's there now. Mika Salo in the Ferrari, first drive to the pleasure of Jean Todt there, the Ferrari boss, moves up to the 3rd row of the grid to join Johnny Herbert.
Yeah, that's a good effort from Salo. That's just 0.3 of a second off of Irvine's pace. And Irvine, of course, has been driving this car now 3 years, is it? So that's a good effort. But the afternoon is yet young, but that's a very good effort from Mika Salo. The surprise, Murray, I think, is the Jordans being so far off the pace.
Yes, because Heinz-Harald Frentzen is the top Jordan driver. He's down in 7th position, 1.3 seconds slower than Coulthard. And Damon Hill is still languishing in 17th position now. 6 laps to do, and Damon's dragged victory from the jaws of defeat in the past. He's going to have to do it again. And here is the Ferrari of Mika Salo, and he's going faster yet again in the first sector. He's done a good second sector. This circuit, incidentally, like all of them, is split up into 3 sectors. He dives into the pit lane, and he's still got 1 run left with 31.5 minutes to go as we look at the Prost coming up to turn 2. That's the one where a lot of them have been going off. It's Olivier Panis, and I'm finding very interesting the fact that a lot of teams are, the drivers, one is not doing nearly as well as the other this year, and Panis is one of them. He's not going nearly as well as Trulli.
No, Panis just hasn't delivered anything the entire season, and it's almost certain that they won't use Olivier next year. A lot of speculation in the paddock that Peugeot will pull out of this team too, if not at the end of this year, at the end of next year. So Alain Prost with more than a few headaches at the moment. Who's he going to get to drive his car? Trulli is trying to move to a more competitive team if he can contractually, and he's got to replace Panis. But even the top teams are struggling to find top drivers.
Indeed they are. There's another rumour going around, incidentally, that Ricardo Zonta in the BAR team would be moving to Benetton, and that Alexander Wurz would be taking his place. I find that very strange, but I pass it on for what it's worth, which is probably not very much. And we are now exactly halfway to within a second or two through the 1-hour qualifying session, with the McLarens in a very strong, not to say impregnable position. 9/10 of a second faster than Eddie Irvine's Ferrari. They've already had 3 front rows of the grid this year, the first 3 races in Australia, Brazil and San Marino.
Now that's Hakkinen studying David Coulthard's overlay, computer overlay, of his fastest lap and Coulthard's fastest lap, which are 0.136 seconds apart, to see where Coulthard's gaining on him. And indeed, there may be some corners where he's gaining on Coulthard. So it's unusual to see Hakkinen having to study a graph to catch Coulthard.
Certainly is. Now let's see who's doing well and who's doing badly compared with their teammates at the moment. Hakkinen and Coulthard, nothing in it, front row of the grid. Eddie Irvine 3rd in the Ferrari, Salo 6th in the Ferrari. Very good indeed, Salo. The 2 Stewarts absolutely together, Barrichello and Herbert, 4th and 5th. Frentzen is 7th in the Jordan. His teammate Damon Hill is down at 18th still. Ralf Schumacher is 8th in the Williams, and his teammate Zanardi, as usual, is very much...
Panis off, Panis going too deep into the first turn, and well, it'll be a bit scruffy underneath, but at least he didn't damage the front wing. He can recover to the pits with that and have a good look underneath. So Panis clearly somewhere near his limit.
Just shows how easy it is to go over the limit. He'd done the best 2 sectors of the afternoon as far as he was concerned, and just overstepped it a bit on the last turn, and that is what happens.
Yes, it's what I was saying earlier on. They're not just sliding a little bit wide and tiptoeing around the edge. They're all going a long way off track. As soon as they lose the grip, there's no grip.
Well, of course they can, at minimum, get out of the car and walk back and get in the spare one. If this is happening in the race tomorrow, there's going to be a lot of people going off and not getting back into it.
Well, if you remember, Michael Schumacher had a huge run through the gravel last year and came in for a new nose. We're on board with Frentzen now. That's in turn 2, fighting the steering wheel. I had a day driving this car on Wednesday, but sorry, that's turn 1. Had a really enjoyable day driving the Jordan, doing some ITV work, and I thought it was a tremendous car, a really first-class car, easy to drive, very drivable in many respects, but for some reason it's just not hooking up around this A1 ring.
Incidentally, if I can just tell you what you're going to be seeing, driving lessons with Martin Brundle, Grand Prix driving lessons, a whole series of special items in the Jordan. What are you going to be showing us, Martin?
Oh, all sorts of things, how to get them off the start line, spinning, oversteer, understeer, pit stops, anything we can think of. We've got a little series coming up on that. We'll be playing to you over various races, but Jordan team did a great job for us, gave us full support, and we had one of these babies for an entire day to do what we wanted with, and it was a great pleasure.
0.7 of a second off Heinz Harold Frentzen. He's in the last sector at the present moment. This is an excellent lap. He's only got to improve by 0.1 of a second to displace Micasalo, and he's only got to improve and he's gone 5th. Up into 5th position goes Heinz Harold Frentzen. He bumps Johnny Herbert down to 6th, Micasalo down to 7th.
Yes, well, Jordan have found something just in time, haven't they? Because that is easily the best lap we've seen from a Jordan this weekend, and he didn't look remotely like he was going to fly off the road. So maybe, just maybe, they've managed to hook those front tyres up and get rid of that understeer. They're failing to turn in as much as they want to, that Frentzen's and Hill have been complaining about.
Yeah, and funnily, and Damon was rhapsodising about how well the Jordan handled just yesterday. They put it away in the garage. It was a perfect motor car. This morning, it's all to pot.
Is rhapsodising good or bad?
Oh, very good indeed. Not good for Zonta as he goes off. News from Louise. What's the news, Louise?
I've been watching Damon Hill. He's just about to make his way onto the track again. He's using a long wheelbase car this weekend. First time they've used it at the race. He prefers the handling of it. And as you said, he used it to brilliant advantage yesterday. Quickest overall. But whereas Heinz Harold Frentzen is 2 seconds quicker today than he was yesterday, Damon hasn't even matched the 13.3 that he did in the afternoon session on Friday. This morning he put it down to traffic. Said he just didn't get a chance to get a clear lap. This afternoon I've asked the team if there's a specific problem. They said, well, no, not really. They've made some changes to the front roll bar, though, and he's just gone out on the track. Let's keep our fingers crossed. He's got 6 laps left. Let's hope he can make them count.
Yes, you're watching Zonta recovering onto the track, a replay. The front anti-roll bar is a small metal bar that connects the 2 front suspensions. So if one front suspension goes into compression, it transfers some of the load across the car to stop the body rolling within the wheels. So you can soften that off sometimes and pick up some front grip.
Well, meantime, as you watch Alexander Wurz, Austria's own, endeavouring to prove on 20th position on the grid. Both the McLarens of Coulthard's fastest so far and Häkkinen are in the garages feeling very secure, with every good reason to do so. They're still 9/10 of a second faster than the third man, Eddie Irvine. They've got 7 laps each if they want to do them. Irvine has got 6 laps. There's still a lot of action left here in Austria, and that's some of it from Wurz turning into the last corner. And that lap moves Wurz up to 9th position, and that is 3 places ahead of Fisichella. That's the first time that Wurz has been ahead of his Italian teammate this Austria.
Yes, well, that's his first time in the 1:12s, and he'll be absolutely delighted. His home track, of course, having a dismal season, complaining that because he weighs 20 kilos more than Fisichella, these cars are ballasted up, but so the cars overall weigh the same. But if you've got 20 kilos of lead to play with, you can move it around in the under tray or move it to the front, change the balance of the car. And Wurz is saying, I've only got 1 kilo of lead to play with, and the centre of gravity and weight distribution of these cars, they're so finely balanced. One of these cars going through a corner 150 miles an hour, they really are finely balanced. If you were able to reach out and give it a shove on the back, you would spin the car off. So it is key, and Wurz is saying, I'm losing out badly.
Well, I think, to be fair to him, he is right. Coming into the Jochen-Rindt curve, which you take at about 120 miles an hour, and into the pit lane. Jacques Villeneuve is on a quick lap at the present moment. He's in 11th position in the BAR, and thankfully we look at him now. Jacques Villeneuve, the world champion of 1997 for Williams. He had a bad year with Williams last year. He threw in his lot with the new BAR team. He's yet to finish a race, and we've had 8 of them this year. And Villeneuve currently in 11th position.
stays there. Had a poor last section. He was on a good lap until the last corner, and it looked all very clumsy through that last corner. So Jacques has got a bit of time in his pocket. He's just got to find it.
Well, Irvine and Barrichello are out on the track. There's the proof. Eddie Irvine, just under 23 minutes to go. He's on his 9th lap out of 12 now, and he's being followed by Rubens Barrichello. They are for 3rd and 4th at the moment.
Yeah, Eddie Irvine haxering away at the steering wheel, possibly slightly overdriving it, but it is he's at the end of the first section. He's a full half a second off of pole position at that, and I sense he's overdriving the car a little bit. Yeah,
Barrichello is quicker than him in the first sector by 0.2 of a second, and Barrichello's only got to improve by 1/100th of a second to displace Eddie Irvine from 3rd position. I was talking about a lot of responsibility resting on Salo's shoulders. If anything, even more on Eddie Irvine, of course, is now the Ferrari team leader in the absence of Michael Schumacher. But what about Barrichello? No, Barrichello is still marginally off Irvine's time. It's still Coulthard provisional pole. Hakkinen, Irvine, Barrichello, Frentzen, Johnny Herbert down to 6th with 21.5 minutes to go.
Yes, Irvine found 0.3 of a second, but it still leaves him well over half a second off of the front row. But Irvine's had plenty to say lately, and really coming out with some unusual comments, it has to be said, about Ferrari and Michael Schumacher. This could be the best thing that's happened to Ferrari because it takes the pressure off them. All kinds of slightly, what I think are bizarre statements, but I'm a bit surprised that he's put himself under that kind of pressure. He's got what he wanted. He's got the Ferrari team completely around him. They're saying, we're going to support you for the World Championship, and Eddie's just got to get on and do it. But he has been driving beautifully so far in the weekend.
He has. Damon Hill, by the way, has moved up to 11th position. He's out on the circuit at the present moment on his 11th lap, and I think he'll be staying out there. So it's now or never as far as Damon is concerned to get into, at minimum, the top 10. He's just improved his lap, but he's still 1/10 of a second off Alexander Wurz, who is in 10th position. David Coulthard in the garage, provisional pole holder.
Yeah, Coulthard has really, I think, had the edge on Hakkinen all through free practice. I think he'll be disappointed if he doesn't maintain. There's a brand new set of tyres on there, surprisingly, but I think he'll be disappointed if he doesn't maintain that. He has definitely had a half a tenth, that's all we're talking about, in hand over Hakkinen, the World Championship leader, all through the free practice.
David Coulthard on a psychological high, of course, and rightly so, after that magnificent victory at Silverstone in the British Grand Prix 2 weeks ago. He's yet to get a pole position this year. He's got several behind him already in the Williams and McLaren team, but not this year. The best he's had is 2nd on the grid. He did that for the first 3 races of this year, but he hasn't been on the front row of the grid since the San Marino Grand Prix, which is the 3rd race of the 16-race series. It's the 9th coming up tomorrow in Austria. And how is Coulthard going with just under 20 minutes to go? We've done 2/3 of the 60-minute qualifying session. David is on his 7th lap now, and out on the track, while Damon Hill is back in the garage, I think, yes. And David Coulthard, 2 1,000 steps. There's Sticker Hakkinen, and he is 2 1,000th of a second faster than Coulthard in the first sector. Now, just 1,000th of a second quicker could give him pole position, and that would be his 7th of the year if he did it. How's he doing in the second sector? 1/10 of a second quicker. It looks as though David Coulthard is going to lose the provisional pole position with 18.5 minutes to go. To Mika Hakkinen, if he's done a good 3rd sector, and he has 1 minute 10.9. That is incredible. That's only 6/10 of a second slower than Jack Villeneuve's pole position time 2 years ago.
With full-blown slicks and more downforce. Incredible. That was a stunning lap.
But David's fighting, sorry to interrupt you, Martin, David is fighting back. He's gone a tenth of a second faster than Häkkinen in the first sector. Coulthard knows that he can get that pole position. He's been quicker than Häkkinen more often than not here in Austria in 1999. If he can start in pole position, it'd be terrific.
It's all down to that last corner. Häkkinen was supreme. He just kicked up a little bit of dust in that last corner. I don't think he had anything left at all, and David's going to have to do it equally as well, because Mika was brilliant right there. Didn't see David quite as fast. Has he taken it away from Häkkinen? No, he hasn't. He's 2.199 behind, so he's got to do it in that last corner.
And they've still got 4 laps left. And this battle is going to go on right to the end of qualifying in 17.5 minutes' time. Meantime, of course, Eddie Irvine has dropped even further back in terms of time from the 2 McLarens. He's still in 3rd position, but he's now over a second, 1.019 seconds slower than Mika Häkkinen.
That's Häkkinen into the weighbridge. You're randomly chosen. They'll go in and measure the exterior dimensions of the car and weigh it, including the driver. They already know the weight of the driver, including overalls and helmet. Subtract that and work out what it all comes to.
Top 10, Häkkinen, Coulthard. Irvine, Barrichello. Row 3, Fredson and Herbert. Both the stewards in the top 6. Salo is 7th in the second Ferrari. Ralf Schumacher is 8th in the Williams. Jacques Villeneuve, an excellent 9th in the BAR. Wurz is 10th in the Benetton, and Damon Hill is 1/10 of a second slower, 11th place.
Yes, Coulthard was down a 10th of a second. They knew that, so they've called him in to give him a chance of 2 more flying laps. So that was a smart move by the McLaren team. It was only a 10th, but it was enough. He wasn't going to take pole, so they elected to pull him in. He's got 4 laps left. That means 2 flying, an out, 2 flying, and an in.
And as Jean Alesi crosses the line in 16th position, we're leaving Austria for a while. Come back soon. We have 13.5 minutes left for the qualifying session of the Austrian Grand Prix, tomorrow's race, as Alex Zanardi exits the pits. He's using steel brakes, incidentally, on that Williams. Those of you who are interested in the technical aspects of racing are concerned. He's an IndyCar driver. He's been having a lot of trouble with carbon fibre brakes, and he hasn't shone in his return to Formula One, and in an effort to help him, Patrick Head, the technical director, has caused the car to be fitted with steel brakes. They make the braking easier, they tell me, Martin.
Yeah, I didn't know that fact, Murray. Fascinating. I mean, I'm gobsmacked they've done that, because they've given away such a lot of braking performance, I would have thought, but Patrick will put me right, I'm sure. But that is a very strange manoeuvre to change the material of the brakes away from what is accepted to be easily the best material. James is in the pits.
Well, it's funny that, Martin, because I told Murray that just before qualifying, and in fact I went and checked it up, and he has in fact been using the steel brakes, but he's switched them back now, Murray, sorry, he had been using the steel, but he's gone back to carbon for the qualifying session. I think the team finally persuaded him that he had to go that route. It just surely couldn't make any sense to be using steel brakes, particularly as they're 9 kilos heavier than the carbon variety. But down at McLaren now, there's the most unbelievable contrast, tale of 2 garages, because McLaren and Ferrari are right next door to each other, and McLaren are simply ecstatic. They can't believe the speed they've found. There's tremendous happiness down here, and I think there's some kind of bet between Mercedes boss Norbert Haug and McLaren boss Ron Dennis, because when that time of Häkkinen's went through, they kind of gave each other the knowing look and went and shook hands on one thing and another, and I think there's some kind of bet gone down. Contrast with next door, Ron Dennis said without Michael Schumacher, Ferrari is half a second slower, and I think they're beginning to believe that he might be right. Eddie Irvine looks unhappy with himself, slightly uncomfortable, and well, he's got his opportunity. He needs to find the speed, but I think he's learning, Martin, the hard way, that if you want to play at the very top of this game, you have to be unbelievably consistent whilst being completely out of your skin.
No doubt about that. That was a fascinating picture. We suddenly had David Coulthard studying the paperwork, working out how Mika had found 2/10 on him. It's going to be a mighty race between those two tomorrow, because there's nothing between the pair of them. So they've both got one more run left yet in this qualifying session too. But just to go back on that brake thing, that is an act of desperation in my view to even try steel brakes. But
well, it's not for me to say so, but I'm going to say so. I think Zanardi is probably struggling to maintain his position in the Williams team for the rest of this season. As we ride with Heinz-Harald Frentzen, he's in 5th place. He needs to improve his previous time by 1/10 of a second to move ahead of Barrichello, which would take him a row forward, because Barrichello is 4th on the grid.
No good at all. He's got in, he missed the corner completely there, Frentzen, so that's blown that lap, really. Just never got it into the apex across the curb.
Well,
he probably braked a bit too late.
I think he couldn't. It certainly ruins the lap as far as pole position is concerned. Let's see how far off the paces he is as he comes through to the 2nd segment, and the answer to that is, oh yes.
Yeah, no, he missed the corner completely, Murray. It didn't look by very much, but he had to really get out of it. And now he's been cruising this last couple of corners. Now he'll stand back on it again.
With 1 lap to go at the end of the one that he's about to finish now. So it's now or never as far as Heinz-Harald Frentzen is concerned. Turn 1 starts to climb, building up to 190 miles an hour on the approach to turn 2. Back off from 190 to 45 miles an hour for the extreme acute right-hander, the hairpin that he is at now. Now he's at the highest point of the circuit, accelerating, starts to drop down a bit as he gets up to 180 miles an hour. And we're looking at Ralf Schumacher now, who's on a quick lap. He's in 8th position. We've got 9.5 minutes left to go. Ralf Schumacher in the Supertech engined Williams. I've said that that engine is deficient of power in the past. Well, they seem to have done something, because it's going extremely well here in Austria. The Benettons and the Williams going much quicker, and Ralf Schumacher, who was 8th, is still there, but he's only 1/1000th of a second, 1/1000th of a second slower than Mika Salo in 7th position in the Ferrari.
Yes, I think Williams have improved the aerodynamic package on their cars. Frentzen comes over the line. Can he? Yes, he does. Goes 4th. So Frentzen pipping Barrichello. And, well, they really have improved that Jordan through the qualifying, haven't they?
What did you find about the handling of it, Martin? Nice and neutral, well balanced?
Yeah, I had to sign some confidentiality clauses. I can't talk too much about exactly how the car was handling, but I was surprised at high speed just how much grip, even with 4 grooves, the tyres have got. They were sliding around a little bit in the slow corners, but the drivability of the car I thought was tremendous.
Alexander Wurz, 10th position. We have 8 minutes to go. Mika Häkkinen and David Coulthard have each done 8 laps. They are separated by 0.2 of a second. Ralf Schumacher is in 8th position now. Irvine is 3rd. Frentzen is on the 2nd row of the grid with Eddie Irvine. Down to the 3rd row of the grid goes Barrichello and the steward to join his teammate Johnny Herbert. Down to the 4th row of the grid goes Mika Salo with Ralf Schumacher. The 5th row is Jacques Villeneuve in 9th position. Alexander Wurz is in 10th position. Damon Hill is in 11th place. I don't think we're going to be seeing him out on the track again. He's done 11 laps. Fisichella is 12th. Marc Genet is in the Minardi in 22nd place, but he's well inside the 107% of pole position time qualifying limit.
So frustrating for Alessandro. He's a better driver than he's looking at the moment. There's absolutely no doubt about it. He just cannot hook this car up. He's been off the road a lot. He's a full 2 seconds off the pace, and that's an eternity in Formula One. And you can see him trying so hard. He's a professional driver, totally committed, and he just cannot get this car underneath him.
A lovely man, wonderful humour. Off goes the Benetton. That looks like Fisichella to me.
Yes,
it is Fisichella trying to improve on his position. He's behind Wurz, which won't please him very much. He's in 12th position. His teammate Wurz is in 10th place. Going back to Zanardi, he's used to having the Indy car, American champion for the last 2 years. It's a much heavier car. You can be much more brutal with it. These Formula One cars are narrower. They're on 4 groove tyres. They're extremely nervous, very, very sensitive. And fine a driver as he is, Zanardi is having trouble in mastering the Williams. Is he improving on this lap? No, sadly, he remains in 14th place in comparison with his teammate Ralf Schumacher, who is 8th.
Yes, as I said at the beginning of the show, really, there's less than a second between 4th on the grid and 17th on the grid, so it's nip and tuck in the middle, and the loser in all that is Jean Alesi, back in 17th, in fact.
Now, going back to the 2 McLaren drivers, there haven't been any team orders this year. There are no team orders now. And with Michael Schumacher out of the picture and Eddie Irvine a full second slower here this afternoon, there's no reason why we shouldn't have a terrific fight between Coulthard and Häkkinen, because both of them realise that they can win the World Championship. Mika Häkkinen is 18 points ahead of Coulthard, but all is not lost for the Scotsman.
Well, you could see there clearly this grey area on the outside of the track just before Fisichella left the road, just how little grip there is. They're just getting a little bit of oversteer on the way in, back end sliding. They have to turn into that slide, and then as soon as they've done that, they're a metre offline, wham, straight off the racetrack.
5 minutes to go. Fisichella out of the car. He's done 11 laps, and that's Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Here is Alexander Wurz. He's got plenty of laps left. He's only done 7 laps.
Yeah, Frentzen on the pit wall because he's completed his 12 allowed laps. So Frentzen in 4th place, second row of the grid, has done all the laps that he can, and he's now just got to wait and hope that he doesn't get pipped. People behind him that might pip him, Barrichello and Herbert. Zonta off the road again. So,
well,
yeah.
He's beached it, I think.
Yeah, he's not going to get out of there, is he?
Well, there's been a lot of talk about gravel tracks after it failed to stop Michael Schumacher. In fairness to the governing body, the FIA, they have tried everything and continue to try everything. But if you go fairly straight at it, as Zonta was doing, that's an exact replica of the angle that Michael Schumacher went off, actually.
Yes, but Michael Schumacher did still slow down at 1.1 G, according to the facts and figures from the FIA. But this is a very simple mistake he's made there. I have to say that this track is very punishing of small mistakes. A tiny lock of the right front tyre, and he's having an incident like that. So really, you're getting heavily punished around here.
And the BAR, incidentally, is a much improved motor car. They're still looking for reliability after 8 races. Jacques Villeneuve has yet to finish one. Mika Salo's finished a race for BAR when he was deputising for Zonta, who hurt his foot in practising for the Brazilian Grand Prix. And Zonta himself has finished one. But their superstar, Jacques Villeneuve, has yet to finish for his new team. Here is Alesi.
Watch Alesi go down in the cockpit when he brakes. I noticed it always happens. There's yellow flags waving for Zonta's car being towed away by the tractor. I would imagine there comes the tractor just nicely blocking our view. But you watch Alesi. Oh, Alesi getting in a bit deep. That's the corner where the yellow flags are waving. But watch Alesi duck down into the cockpit when he hits the brakes, almost like his seat is not right.
Yeah, I think we've got the first 3 rows of the grid form now. Johnny Herbert could improve. He's on an out lap now, and he's got 1 lap to do at the end of this one. He's in 6th position. He needs to go just about a 1/10 of a second faster, and that is Olivier Panis going off again. 18th on the grid. Jarno Trulli going off 13th on the grid. So the 2 Prosts are 13th and 18th. Not a good qualifying session for them. Now Johnny Herbert's on his quick lap.
Well, Coulthard is out as well, but there's only 2 minutes left, so they've elected, yes, they've got 2 flying laps. It's a short lap here, of course, but I don't think Coulthard will get them both in. And Häkkinen's not yet left the pit, so Häkkinen is just leaving the garage now. Häkkinen may or will get 1 flying lap in.
Now we're going to see action. Now we're going to see action because there is Eddie Irvine. So Coulthard, Häkkinen and Eddie Irvine, the 3 fastest so far, are all out on the track with just less than 2 minutes to go. A lap has been taking 1 minute and 10 seconds or thereabouts if you are mighty quick. And here is the McLaren coming down to the Gersa curve, David Coulthard.
Yeah, Coulthard is on a flying lap there, so Coulthard on his first flying lap, Häkkinen on an out lap, and we're going to get a time anytime soon from David Coulthard, a first section time, and it's not fast enough. David not having a good first lap.
And Johnny Herbert, incidentally, has done his 12 laps and is still in 6th position. He won't be at all unhappy with that. It's considerably better than he's done this year.
Well, Coulthard will have known from his dashboard that he's down on that first section. He's actually cruising now, probably making a bit of space for himself. He's got a minute left, so plenty of time to get around to the start-finish line. There's only two corners from home, and then he's got one final shot at it.
Now, I spoke too soon about Johnny Herbert. He's just done the first sector quicker than he's gone before, as David Coulthard starts his last lap with 45 seconds to go. And Johnny Herbert could pip Rubens Barrichello for 5th on the grid if he can maintain the pace that he's shown in the first sector. And here he is. The producer has picked up Johnny Herbert on his quick lap. His second sector was not as fast as he has been before, but it's still a good one, and he's aborted it. So he's starting 6th for the Austrian Grand Prix tomorrow. 15 seconds left.
Yes, Coulthard still a couple of tenths down in that first section. I think there's probably been too many cars off the road for enough grip in those first two corners. So Coulthard's got a tremendous amount of work to do in the mid-section of this lap, and then he's got to be stunning through those last two corners, because Häkkinen absolutely had it on the limit.
And the clock has stopped for David Coulthard, as he had started his last lap before it did so, can go on and complete it and have his time count. It's not going to be good enough, I don't think. 0.2 of a second off as he starts and now finishes the last sector. And he's 0.3 of a second off Mika Häkkinen's time. So Mika Häkkinen and Eddie Irvine. I'd lost sight of Eddie Irvine. Häkkinen has gone quicker in his first sector. Irvine has gone faster than he had been before, but he is still 3rd on the grid.
Häkkinen, I think, has taken to the pit lane. So yes, Häkkinen, he knows it. They probably called him
he knows,
his 16th pole position in Formula 1, and he knew that Coulthard wasn't fast enough. Irvine hadn't done that last lap fast enough, and they called him in. So Häkkinen on the pole, and Salo stays in 7th on his lap in the other Ferrari. But what a great scrap between Häkkinen and Coulthard. Häkkinen just having the edge this afternoon.
For the 7th time this year, he started in pole position in Australia, in Brazil, the San Marino Grand Prix, and at Monaco, and in Spain. And then he did it in Britain, and now he's done it again here in Austria, and puts him in a strong position, but not a commanding position, because it's his teammate, the second fastest man today, who's on the front row of the grid with him, David Coulthard, the man who won the British Grand Prix at Silverstone, and they're separated by 0.2 of a second. Eddie Irvine, 1 second, a massive 1 second, multiplied by 71, which is the number of laps tomorrow, could be nearly a minute and 15 seconds slower over the race distance. But it's a very different thing in the race. Frentzen is 4th, Barrichello and Herbert are 5th and 6th, Salo are 7th and 8th, Villeneuve are 9th and 10th, Damon Hill is 11th, and we're leaving for a break.
Welcome back as we review the qualifying session for the Austrian Grand Prix. Mika Häkkinen, remember he had a faultless drive throughout last year's race, and once again the world champion is the master of the qualifying hour. Both Stewarts right in there. 3 British drivers in the top 6. Well done to Mika Salo as well. Damon Hill down in 11th. Let's hear from the top 3.
Mika, well done. It's your 7th pole in 9 attempts, but it started very badly. Your first lap, you stopped on the circuit. What was the problem?
Yes, the boys have to take the engine out in after the practice this morning, obviously I don't know exactly what happened yet, and just lost the power of the engine, and have to pull on the right hand side of the track just before I even end up in the first corner, really, or second corner. So I have to come back and take a T car, and it was a very difficult moments that time. You know, you have to really keep your head cool that type of situation.
Now this morning the times between Ferrari and McLaren very close, but now you've pulled out over a second. What have you done in the hour and a half between this morning and qualifying for that gap to emerge?
It's a
Keep out of fuel.
Do you want to? No, we cannot tell that, sorry.
Thanks, Mika. David, you also had a difficult start to qualify. You just went in and did it in and out lap. Why was that?
We had a small electronic problem, and I just wanted to be sure that it wasn't going to give me a problem in my qualifying lap. So I didn't have time in the one lap to look at the data, so it was best to come in, look at it. It was fine, just to reset and then go for it.
Now, all weekend you were very, very close, but it seems that at the end of today's session the track got slower. Is that right?
Well, I'm not sure. The last set of tyres I had on were the first set that I went and did the one lap on, and it just didn't seem to offer quite as much grip as the first two sets, which were completely brand new. You know, it's not a big difference because the lap time was, you know, I think within half a tenth, but I just didn't feel as confident to attack the corners, which is what you have to do in qualifying.
Thanks, David. Eddie, before the race, before the qualifying, you said to me that you thought you closed the gap right down to McLaren. Suddenly it's open to a second again. Do you know why?
Well, we underperformed, to be honest. We should have done 11.5 if you had our T's up, but the brakes were just, I couldn't use the brakes. If I tried to use them, I'd lock the rears or I'd lock the fronts, and that's basically where I lost all the time from this morning, when you consider the way the car is and the track and new tyres and all that. So we just have to look at that and see what the story is.
Ferrari's top man underachieving, but Tony Jardine, it's fair to say Mika Häkkinen drove a bit better than he spoke in the press conference. Awesome performance from him again.
Yeah, it was. I'm quite surprised that Ferrari aren't that bit closer, because this is not a sort of real fast stretch your leg circuit where McLaren can use their ace aero pack, so to speak, and I expected Ferrari to be a bit closer. That's why the McLaren performance is so astounding.
It's those silver arrows on the front row again. For a while we thought David Coulthard might get his first pole of the year.
Yeah, new man really, very relaxed years after that great win at the British Grand Prix. He's that bit closer to Mika Häkkinen. He's really performing very, very well. He's, you know, his first win in sort of 14 months, an unbelievable performance at Silverstone. He's transferring that here into this sort of qualifying. He's on the front row, so he's still in good shape.
Yeah, how much difference does it really make to David Coulthard not getting that pole position? Not a lot, really.
No, not a lot. It's all down to the start. And unfortunately, Häkkinen's been making better starts than him recently, but it should be entertaining going into that first corner with the two silver arrows and then Irvine right behind them.
And Mika Häkkinen somehow breaking 1:11 and getting pole and right on the edge.
Well, this is the very, very ragged edge. Now, this is Häkkinen at his best, and this is the difference between Coulthard and Häkkinen, the commitment. Just look here. Now, look at that. He takes a bit of grass, up comes the dirt. And considering all the rain that's been coming down over days down here at Spielberg, it's unbelievable that he even dares put a wheel anywhere near that soggy grass on the edge. But he's ignored everything, he's ignored all the hype, and he's getting on with the job.
His temperament is terrific, isn't it? Because he's done it in the T car after really early problems in that session.
Yeah, and this is the chink in the McLaren armour, the reliability factor. And if you look back on the qualifying, you'd have thought that Häkkinen was being chased by Michael Schumacher himself, because it's relentless. He's carrying on, he's staying on his toes, but David Coulthard's keeping him on his toes as well. Ferrari are hoping, obviously, there's a reliability problem for McLaren.
And Eddie Irvine, the Ferrari #1, almost had a very dodgy moment, didn't he?
Well, this is Irv the Swerve really living up to his name there. Look at that, those hard compound tyres suddenly losing adhesion and breaking away. Look at it again from another angle in the slow motion. Out it goes. Now, Irvine, it's been said by Gerhard Berger, he hasn't got the capacity to do the job. He won't make the World Championship. Hill is backing him, saying he's a hard nut, he'll do it. He's been trying just as hard as ever there.
Johnny Herbert's done well to get in the top 6. Both Stewarts in the top 6.
Both Stewarts in the top 6. The rumour is Barrichello's thinking about Ferrari. He's gone off the boil slightly. Herbert's thinking about his job for next year, so there's a bit of a gun to his head. But even so, it shows the progress at Stewart and of Ford with this new development engine. It's very, very good.
And would Damon Hill finally be a bit disappointed being back there in 11th?
He's bound to be, but he's pulled himself up from 18th on the grid, and once there was more rubber going down on this track, which became very, very green after the rain and all his rallycross techniques, he's back in the frame now.
Good, Tony Jardine, thank you very much indeed. OK, well, tomorrow our build-up to the race starts, and we are live, of course, at 12:15 tomorrow, and the race off at 1 o'clock. Highlights at 11:45 tomorrow night. Right then, we really have seen A staggering show from the McLarens, Hakkinen and Coulthard in a great position to repeat last year's 1-2, and Ferrari already finding it tough without Michael Schumacher. See you for the race, live tomorrow. Bye-bye.